Basically, all I want to do is crawl in a hole and stay there for the rest of my life. You tell me what I should do. Tell me.
I'm gonna be honest, y'all. This story right here, it's dark. It is no secret that Britney Spears had it rough. The 2007 breakdown, the court-ordered conservatorship, the head-shaving moment, the rehab, the canceled performances, the silence. But what if I told you that everything, from her chaotic VMA comeback to losing custody of her kids, might have been planned? Not just by her family, but by people who were more powerful and way more dangerous. People like Sean Diddy Combs. The same Diddy now facing multiple lawsuits, federal raids, and sex trafficking allegations. The same Diddy Cassie accused of violence and manipulation, and now Britney's name is being brought into his trial, not as a bystander, but as a potential victim. And when you line up the dots, it starts to look like Britney wasn't just spiraling. She may have been set up. Her fans have always believed that she was being controlled, but what's just come to light could rewrite everything known about this pop princess. Because it wasn't just her father pulling the strings. It was a whole machine, a system, and Diddy might have been one of the gatekeepers. So let me walk y'all through this. Britney Spears didn't just break down, she was broken. And it all started the night before her 2007 MTV performance at one of Diddy's infamous parties. Let's rewind to September 8th, 2007, the night before Britney's disastrous VMA performance that had the whole world saying she was done. That night, Britney showed up to Jet nightclub in Las Vegas, a Diddy-hosted pre-party packed with celebs. Photos show her hanging out with Diddy and others, smiling but distant, wearing sunglasses indoors. Her energy is off. Hours later, she'd hit the VMA stage for what was supposed to be a comeback performance of Give Me More. Instead, the performance bombed. Britney looked disoriented, her moves were sluggish, her lips barely synced to the track. Critics called her a zombie. Headlines read, Britney's career over. And just like that, everything collapsed. But here's where it gets disturbing. Why was she partying with Diddy the night before such an important performance? And why does Cassie Ventura mention Britney by name in her recent court testimony? Cassie said that Diddy brought Britney to her 21st birthday party in Vegas that same night at Pure Nightclub. She recalled, Sean was there and he brought Dallas Austin, Britney Spears. I think those were the two people that stand out to me. Why did Diddy bring Britney, of all people, to a party full of alcohol, celebrities, and cameras right before her biggest comeback moment? And guess who was managing both Britney and Diddy at the time? Lou Taylor. Lou M. Taylor was no ordinary business manager. She ran a corporation that is now tied to illegal surveillance, financial abuse, and sex worker payments in Diddy's case. What's more, her business address is also listed in Diddy's lawsuit. She was the architect behind Britney's 13-year-long conservatorship. Britney was stripped of her money, her rights, even her ability to drive or speak freely. So ask yourself, was Britney's collapse at the VMAs just a coincidence? Or was it the beginning of a setup planned by powerful people? She said her former business management firm, TriStar Sports and Entertainment, were trying to kill her. I will sue the shit out of TriStar. Psst, they got away with all of it and I am here to warn them every day of my precious life. And in her memoir, The Woman in Me, she said about the 2007 VMAs, I felt dizzy. But why hadn't she slept? Why was she dizzy? Why was she so out of it? And why was Diddy, a man now accused of multiple women, so close to her that exact weekend? Y'all, this is where it starts getting wild, because that night with Diddy, it wasn't just a party. It was a prelude to one of the most twisted setups in pop culture history, and Britney Spears was the target. Now, it's clear Britney's 2007 VMA performance was a disaster, but here's what most folks don't realize. Just months after that night with Diddy, Britney would lose custody of her kids, be placed under a psychiatric hold, and eventually fall under a conservatorship so strict she compared it to trafficking in court. Let that sink in. And right in the middle of it all, Lou Taylor and Robin Greenhill. Just 4 months after the VMA collapse, Britney was involuntarily hospitalized in January 2008 under California's 5150 law, a hold used when someone is considered a danger to themselves or others. But here's the kicker. The hospital Britney was placed in, it's just 9 minutes away from TriStar's headquarters. And guess who else had a business address 9 minutes from there? Yep, Diddy. Coincidence or coordination? Some fans believe that Night with Diddy was more than just a party. It was the start of a carefully crafted character assassination and a way to make Britney look crazy, just in time to trap her into a conservatorship. Why? Because Britney had money, power, control. And if you take that away, you get a pop star who's worth hundreds of millions but can't even pick her own lawyer. Lou Taylor and her team profited off of Britney's name for 13 years, and they weren't the only ones cashing in. There's another theory making the rounds, and it is downright chilling. What if Diddy has compromising footage of Britney from the night before the VMAs? Now imagine this, that footage somehow found its way into the hands of Lou Taylor. It might sound like something straight out of a movie, but let's not forget, Lil Rod claimed that Mr. Combs keeps incriminating videos of everyone who's ever attended his notorious house parties or freak-off events. Sounds wild, right? But if you start connecting the dots, following the money, the timelines, and the tangled web of connections, it doesn't seem all that far-fetched. Because after that night, Britney's public image was destroyed. Her finances were seized, her freedom was gone, all while Lou Taylor, Robin Greenhill, and TriStar gained control. Here's a twist that you might have missed. Congressman Matt Gaetz was one of the few politicians who publicly called out Britney's conservatorship. He even attended a Free Britney rally. He said she should be allowed to testify before Congress and called out the judiciary for ignoring her case. Right after that, he was hit with sex trafficking allegations and caught in what he called an extortion plot.
The New York Times is reporting that Gaetz is being investigated by the Justice Department over whether he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl and paid for her to travel with him. Gaetz told the news site Axios tonight that the allegations against him are false.
Okay, let's zoom in on what really went down the night before the 2007 VMAs and why this might have been Britney Spears' point of no return. Because it's clear that Diddy and Britney were there. And this wasn't just any party, it may have been a freak-off, and if you've been following the Diddy case lately, you already know what that means. These weren't just regular Hollywood events. These were secret, invite-only parties Diddy allegedly hosted where guests were drugged, recorded, and in some cases, trafficked. That is not speculation, that is directly from multiple lawsuits, including Cassie's. Now, picture this. Britney shows up, she's trying to rebuild her image, trying to prepare for a massive comeback performance after years of bad press, a failed marriage, and a very public mental health spiral. But instead of resting and rehearsing, she ends up in a VIP room with Combs and other elite guests, drinking, partying, maybe more. Then boom, less than 24 hours later, she is on stage looking completely out of it. Slurring, lost, no energy, no confidence, barely lip singing, and y'all know what happens next. Custody loss, hospitalization, and the start of 13 years of total control under a conservatorship. Photos from that weekend have resurfaced and they are haunting. One picture shows Britney and Diddy at a Jet nightclub, and Britney is wearing sunglasses indoors, her face glazed over, and with a forced smile. Diddy, cool and collected, is posing like it's just another night out. Another shot shows the two at 50 Cent's after party later that night at the Hard Rock Hotel. Again, Britney's vibe is off. Her body language is stiff, her eyes don't match the smile. Fans now believe that those were red flags. Some say you can see it in her face, and she didn't want to be there. Now, here is where it gets really dark and really plausible. One circulating theory, backed by rumors, suggests that Lou Taylor may have actually hired Diddy to drug Britney the night before the VMAs. Why? Because Britney had been pushing back. She was no longer cooperating with the image machine. She wanted out of the spotlight, out of her team's grip, and she wanted custody of her children. But a scandal like a up VMA collapse? That gives her handlers the perfect excuse to say she's unwell and she needs to be legally controlled. There's a quote in Britney's memoir that supports this. "I hated the way I looked. I knew it was going to be bad. I was dizzy. I hadn't slept the night before. I was having a panic attack." She wasn't just nervous. She was medicated, possibly drugged. And what's one of the most common claims in Diddy's lawsuits right now? That he drugged his guests without consent. It is all connecting. Here's a piece almost nobody's talking about. Both Britney Spears and Diddy have been photographed with Rachel Chandler, the alleged child recruiter for Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, that Epstein. Now, nobody is saying Britney knew what was going on, but the people managing her, they definitely did. Robin Greenhill, Lou Taylor, even her own father, Jamie Spears, they all benefited from controlling Britney's career, her finances, and allegedly her body. "I've been blackmailed by visitation with my babies by the sea ship. I'm confined, restrained, and stripped of my civil rights."
I was just saying I want out of this conservatorship. I've been blackmailed by visitation of my babies. That was conservatorship. I'm confined, restrained, and stripped of my civil rights.
She said it herself. This wasn't just illegal, it was personal. It was invasive. And in her words, it was criminal. Here's a mind blower. Back in 2006, just a year before the VMAs, Britney recorded a song called Rebellion. It was never officially released, but the lyrics, they are definitely different now. Be wary of others, the ones closest to you, the poison they feed you, and the voodoo that they do. You'll find it in Rebellion. At the time, one would think that it was all about her label, but now, a lot of people believe she was sounding the alarm about Lou Taylor, about Diddy, maybe even about her own family. When Britney shaved her head in 2007 and attacked the paparazzi van with an umbrella, the world laughed. They said she was crazy. But Britney later said that moment was her rebellion. She was trying to send a message. She said, "I have been looked up and down, had people telling me what they thought of my body since I was a teenager. Shaving my head and acting out were my ways of pushing back." And yet, not long after, she was hospitalized, medicated, and locked into a conservatorship that would last 13 years. And who stood to gain? Lou Taylor, Robin Greenhill, Jamie Spears, and maybe Diddy. Let me read you some of the reactions from fans once Cassie dropped Britney's name in the trial. Britney Spears has been off the wall on social media lately. It is really sad to see. Many people just make fun of her, just like Justin Bieber. Their parents send them into the lion's den and they come out damaged for life, used, abused, and tossed out like trash. OMG, this is so sad. Justice for Britney and JB. She is a mess right now. So sad. Diddy must pay for his horrific crimes. I worry they're getting ready to off Britney. So much info is coming out about her. I feel an dose story coming soon. Could she enter witness protection to escape and ensure her safety? Y'all, these are not just conspiracy theorists. These are fans, people who have followed Britney for 2 decades, people who watched her rise and her fall and now realize she may never have had a fair shot. Here's how Britney summed it up in her book. "I feel like I've been underwater for so long, only rarely swimming up to the surface to gasp for air and a little food." That doesn't sound like a spoiled pop star. That sounds like a prisoner. Everything about her life, from her team to her medication to her own father, was designed to keep her compliant, to silence her, to keep the money flowing. And if Diddy was involved in any part of that, he is not just a music mogul. He is a predator. Now I have to talk about someone who has been hiding in plain sight. Robin Greenhill. Robin wasn't just Lou's assistant. She was one of the enforcers, and according to Britney's own words, this woman helped strip her of her freedom and might have done a lot worse behind closed doors. She would also tell men Britney's sexual and medical history before a date. This is straight up trafficking behavior. What's even crazier is that people around Britney could actually see what Robin was doing. It was obvious. Britney looked like a prisoner. Even Andy Cohen talked about it. He said someone told him there was this woman who's always by Britney's side, telling her what to do and where to go. It's honestly really creepy.
But they said there's this woman who is at Britney's side at all times, and she basically tells her what to do and where to go, and it's really creepy.
He went on to say that when he visited her, it felt like Britney was her captive.
And I get there, and this woman was there, and it was like Britney was her it was like Britney was her captive.
Now, Andy didn't mention her name for fear of being sued, but it was pretty clear he was talking about Greenhill. And remember, Greenhill has been named in multiple Diddy-related lawsuits. In fact, one court record accused Robin, the accountant who wired money to workers for Diddy's private events. So let's pause for a second. Robin Greenhill worked for Lou Taylor. Lou Taylor was managing both Britney and Diddy. Robin paid sex workers for Diddy. Robin told men intimate things about Britney. Robin helped orchestrate Britney's conservatorship, and Britney says she was blackmailed into staying quiet. That's not a coincidence. That is a pattern. Let's go even deeper. If there is anyone who's been screaming about this for years, it's singer Jaguar Wright. She's called Lou Taylor a witch, and she believes that Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and other former Mickey Mouse Club kids were tricked to powerful men like Diddy and Jeffrey Epstein.
What are your thoughts on Lou Taylor?
She's a witch. And she should be strung alive for what she done to Britney Spears' life.
Do you believe that Britney was trafficked to Diddy and
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of those girls, all of those Mickey Mouse girls, including Christina Aguilera.
They can't remember all the trauma because they were drugged. They were handled and they have been shrunk to death. They don't know what to believe, but they can feel it.
Now they think they're just bad dreams, but they're memories. And because they've been drugged and they've been handled and they've been shrunk to death, they don't know what to believe, but they can feel it.
And it's true. From the Diddy lawsuit, it's pretty clear that Hollywood uses drugs, trauma, and hypnosis-style conditioning to control child stars. And Britney's entire trajectory fits the mold. Jaguar made a shocking comparison between Britney's situation and Zoe Kravitz's movie Blink Twice, a thriller about a woman being invited into a billionaire's island only to realize they're being groomed, drugged, and trafficked. She said that's why the movie Blink Twice is so important, that women have been re-victimized by the same men over and over again and didn't even know it. That's what all the baby oil was all about.
That's why that movie Blink Twice is so important. That woman had been re-victimized by the same men over and over again and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
That's what that's what that baby oil is all about.
And when you connect the dots, it all starts to resemble the plot of Blink Twice. But this isn't a movie, it's real. In court, Britney claimed that she was forcibly put on lithium, a powerful psychiatric drug used to treat bipolar disorder. She said, "I felt drunk. I couldn't even have a conversation with my mom or dad. They made me feel like I was crazy. I had to sit in a chair for 10 hours a day. They watched everything I did." Let's be clear. Lithium in high doses can cause confusion, loss of memory, slurred speech, dizziness, tremors. Sound familiar? That's exactly how she looked during the VMAs. Was she by her team even before the conservatorship officially started? And was Diddy involved in the first dose? Now, I have to talk about motivation. Why would Taylor, Robin, and even Britney's own father do this? Money. Britney was bringing in millions a month through her Las Vegas residency, endorsements, merchandise, and streaming. She was one of the most bankable pop stars on earth. Under conservatorship, every check went through her father and her management team. Reports say Lou Taylor's firm made millions off of Britney annually. Her father, Jamie, got $16,000 a month as her conservator, plus $2,000 a month for an office space he never used. She was the provider. She paid for everything. Everyone in my life profited from my pain. If Britney had gotten her freedom back, that money would have stopped, and the people controlling her would have lost everything. Even Simon Cowell was concerned. After watching Britney's 2007 VMA performance, he said she wasn't ready for that show in every possible way. The song wasn't right, the image wasn't right, and she just wasn't rehearsed. If Simon, one of the industry's most ruthless producers, could see Britney was unwell, why didn't her team? Answer: they did. They just didn't care. Here's what's happening right now. Diddy is facing federal investigations and trafficking lawsuits. Cassie's testimony brought up Britney by name. Lou Taylor's firm, TriStar, has been accused of surveillance and sex trafficking ties. Robin Greenhill is named in lawsuits related to worker payments. New rumors claim Lou hired Diddy to help derail Britney's comeback, and now it's all making sense. Everyone is connecting it all. Everything I have talked about so far leads to one terrifying conclusion. Britney Spears may have been trafficked by her own team. And what's worse, they may have used Diddy to make it happen. Because it's not just Cassie who's naming names, it's not just Wright connecting the dots. The most damning accusations are now coming from inside the industry itself. Now let's talk about Rodney Lil Rod Jones. If you haven't been following this guy, he is a producer who worked closely with Diddy. And in 2024, he filed a massive lawsuit alleging assault and trafficking. But here's the part everyone missed. Lil Rod said he was instructed to hire workers for Diddy, sometimes on video, and that those tapes were archived by Diddy's team. One of the people named in the filings? Robin. If that's true and she was organizing women for Diddy and running Britney's conservatorship at the same time, that means she was playing both sides. Britney wasn't just a client, she was a target. And let's not leave her parents out of this. In her memoir, Britney said her mother was the first to interfere in her relationships. She ended Britney's first real love, then her father took over and controlled her entire life for more than a decade. And here's the saddest line. Britney said he took pleasure in having the power to hurt his own daughter. She likened her working conditions to those experienced by victims of trafficking. I was working every single day, she explained. I had no access to money, no credit card, no cash, and my passport was taken from me. He wasn't alone. Her mother, her brother, her management, all of them went silent while Britney was being surveyed, sedated, and paraded around like a puppet. They lived off her, profited off her, and when she tried to resist, they silenced her. Britney no longer needs to explain herself. She's already poured her truth out in the pages of her memoir. In it, she describes the suffocating feeling of living under constant control, like someone trapped her underwater, barely coming up for air. The moment she was placed under conservatorship marked a turning point. She was told her old life was gone and she needed to change her appearance, follow strict rules, and take whatever medication was handed to her with no questions asked. This wasn't just control, it was psychological warfare. People laughed, but now the whole world knows that performance may have been the result of being set up and exploited. Right now, the Diddy trial is ongoing. Federal raids have happened, former employees are testifying, celebrities are being subpoenaed, and Britney's name has already been said in court. If her name comes up again, if even one of the lawsuits mentions her directly, it is over for a lot of people. Because here's what makes Britney's case so important. She's still alive. She can still speak. She can still tell her story. And if that story matches what others are saying, the abuse, the drugs, the manipulation, the freak-offs, the surveillance, then Diddy, Lou Taylor, Robin Greenhill, and even her own parents could be looking at a criminal conspiracy bigger than anyone imagined. If this video opened your eyes, if you believe Britney Spears deserves justice, then drop a comment below and say #JusticeForBritney. Like this video, share it with someone who still thinks this is just celebrity gossip. Subscribe and hit that bell.